Have you ever paused mid-chore, maybe mowing the lawn or, I don't know, folding laundry and thought, is this my job just because of my gender? Or maybe watched your partner tackle a task and it just seemed, well, inherently man-typed or woman-typed. It's a feeling I think many of us recognize. And it hints at a really stubborn truth about how we divide labor at home, even in relationships where, both partners genuinely strive for equality. So today, we're pulling back the curtain on exactly that. We're going to really dig into a fascinating new study that looks beyond the obvious stuff. Our mission for this deep dive, to understand why some household tasks remain so stubbornly well-gendered and the surprising dynamics that are actually at play. We'll explore concepts like doing gender and a really interesting twist on gatekeeping.
Yeah, it's a truly compelling piece of research we're exploring today. The article is titled, "It's a Man's Job, Doing Gender and Male Gatekeeping in the Division of Household Labor." It was published just this year in the Journal of Family Issues by Emily Christopher. And what makes this study so unique, I think, and genuinely insightful, is its focus on man-typed tasks. So much of the research out there tends to concentrate on women's traditional roles, and the slow shift of men into them. But this article kind of flips that script.
Right.
It dives deep into those tasks men have historically dominated. And it promises some fresh insights into the micro-level interactions between partners, really getting into the nuances of how these divisions are perpetuated day to day.
Okay, so we know the domestic division of labor. It's
Yeah.
been a hot topic for decades now. We've seen incredible changes, yeah. More and more couples aiming for truly egalitarian partnerships. Many people genuinely believe in sharing responsibilities equally, and, they say they do. But despite these changing attitudes, our actual behavior in the home doesn't always quite align with our beliefs, does it? Some tasks just seem stuck.
Exactly.
And that's precisely what this study zeroes in on. Why do men continue to be, disproportionately responsible for certain tasks? And why is this division so resistant to change? It's a crucial question, I think, because understanding these underlying dynamics is really central to tackling broader gender inequality, even if it starts with something as seemingly small as, like, who takes out the bins.
Absolutely. And to get to the bottom of this, the study used a really interesting, actually quite ingenious methodology. The researchers worked with 25 heterosexual working parent British couples. These were from the UK West Midlands. They first collected data back in 2014, 2015, and then, this is key, reconfirmed their findings with the same couples in 2022, 2023.
Oh, wow. So they check back in.
Yeah, which is a powerful way to show the persistence of these patterns over time. The sample itself was predominantly white and mostly middle class, with children ranging from, I think, 1 to 13 years old.
Yeah.
And the core of their method was something they called the household portrait technique. So picture this. Couples were giving sticky-backed cards, right? Each listing over 25 common household and childcare tasks. They were then asked to collaboratively place these cards into one of 5 columns. Woman only, woman, man helps, shared, man only, and man, woman helps.
Okay, so visually sorting it out.
Exactly. But here's the really clever part. It wasn't just a survey. Researchers conducted interviews with the couples together, actually observing their discussions, their negotiations, even their disagreements as they completed their portraits.
Ah, so you see the dynamics in action.
Precisely. It offered this truly rich qualitative look into their decision-making process and how they actually talked about these roles.
And what did those household portraits reveal? Was it obvious?
Well, it was pretty stark, especially when it came to those man-typed tasks. You're going to want to hear these numbers. Mowing the lawn. A staggering 79% of couples identified that as man only.
79%. Wow.
Yeah. Cleaning the car wasn't far behind at 67% man only. DIY and home maintenance stood at 48% man only. And even taking out the bins was 36% man only.
Okay, those are high numbers for man only. How did that compare to, say, traditional women's work?
Well, compare that to what's traditionally seen as woman-typed tasks.
Yeah.
Only 20% of these couples describe cleaning the house as woman only.
Only 20%. That's a big difference.
It is. And what's striking isn't just the high percentage of these male-dominated tasks, but that these man-type tasks were explicitly identified by the couples themselves as a man's job. Like, they said those words.
They actually use that phrase.
Yes. But here's the kicker. No tasks were similarly labeled a woman's job by the couples, even when women were doing them exclusively.
Huh. That's interesting.
And unlike the often contentious discussions around, say, cleaning or childcare, there was a noticeable lack of disagreement between partners on who did these man-type tasks. They just accepted it.
Like an unspoken rule.
Almost, yeah. It just was.
Okay, so this leads us to those concepts you mentioned earlier, doing gender and male gatekeeping.
Exactly. This brings us directly to those two core concepts that the study really illuminates. First, doing gender. This idea comes from Weston Zimmerman, and it's quite powerful. It suggests that gender isn't just who we are innately, but something we actively perform or enact every single day.
Right, through our actions.
Through our actions or conversations, even the way we assign chores, it all actively reinforces those gendered roles, often without us even realizing we're, doing it. So when couples perform tasks in line with these expected gender roles, they're actively engaging in practices that solidify those roles, both inside the home and, frankly, outside too.
Okay, so that's doing gender. What about male gatekeeping? That sounds
Okay.
a bit different from what we usually hear.
It is. So male gatekeeping is where men actively claim these man-type tasks as their own territory. And the study found numerous examples. Take a guy named Will. Despite sharing other tasks pretty much 50-50, he pointed to the portrait and actually stated, "It's all 50-50, but there are fundamental man jobs in all of this."
And his partner.
His partner, Rachel, readily agreed, just nodded along. Or listen to Dave, another participant, when discussing mowing the lawn. Mowing the lawn, that is me and always will be.
Always will be. Quite definitive.
Right. And Joe, his partner, simply adds, "Man's job." And Dave then concludes, "Yeah, and men do it better."
Yeah. Men do it better.
I know. It's quite a statement. Another example, Rob, talking to his partner Alexandra about mowing the lawn, casually remarked, "I don't think you know how to start the lawnmower."
Oof. Patronizing, maybe?
A little, yeah. And this is a really important distinction from the more commonly studied maternal gatekeeping, where mothers might implicitly or explicitly kind of block fathers from childcare or housework, maybe feeling they do it better or have higher standards.
Right, we hear about that a lot.
Yeah. But here, the study flips that. It shows gatekeeping from men, even when the woman isn't necessarily expressing a desire or intention to do the task herself. It's almost like a preemptive claim, "This is mine."
That's a really powerful distinction. So, okay, if it's not just about who's supposedly better at it or the woman wanting to do it, what did the researchers discover about why men actively claim these roles? What are the motivations behind this male gatekeeping?
Well, the study reveals several key motivations, and they go beyond simple competence. One big one is simply enjoyment and even leisure.
Enjoyment, like they actually like doing these chores.
Many of them express a genuine liking for these tasks, yeah, often seeing them as not a chore or a guy thing. Paul, for example, on washing the car said, "I do, it's a guy thing, it's almost not a chore." Steve similarly said, "I quite enjoy it." And it goes beyond just liking the task itself. The study points out that tasks like car washing or lawn mowing often give men, less pressured time compared to women's often simultaneous task performance. Juggling multiple things.
Ah, right. Like focused time versus multitasking.
Exactly. Ben, talking about cutting the lawn, said, "Yeah, get my headphones on. I like cutting the lawn." Ed enjoyed washing the car with the radio on, listening to sports. This really highlights how these man-type tasks can be experienced as relaxing, almost a form of leisure, like a break. Not just another item on a never-ending to-do list, which women's tasks often feel like.
That's a really interesting point about the perception of these tasks as leisure almost, rather than just work. What else did the study uncover? Why else hold on to these roles?
Another factor they identified is temporal independence. These tasks, mowing, car washing, DIY, they're typically done in the evenings or on weekends.
Right, not usually during the 9 to 5.
Precisely, which means they don't conflict with men's paid work schedules. This allows men to prioritize their professional roles during the week, but still do gender at home in their time off. They can demonstrate their masculine competence, but sort of on their own schedule. It fits into their preferred timetable.
Okay, that makes sense. Any other reasons?
And finally, some men linked these tasks to bonding, particularly with their sons. Jerton described how he loves mowing the lawn with his son, who follows him around with a little toy mower. It turns it into this shared, almost ritualistic experience.
Ah, okay. So enjoyment, flexibility, bonding. These individual preferences and actions, though, they don't happen in a vacuum, right? They must connect to larger societal ideas about masculinity. What does the study say about that connection? How do these behaviors link to wider social constructions of what it means to be a man?
Absolutely, they're deeply connected. For example, there's a clear spatial division mentioned in the study. Man-typed tasks often happen outside the house garden, driveway, or they bridge the indoors and outdoors. Think cutting tiles outside to lay a floor inside, or, filling the bin inside to take it out.
Right, the outside domain.
Yeah, and this mirrors that traditional masculine public feminine private divide, where men were associated with the public sphere, women with the private domestic one. It's almost like these tasks physically reinforce those old boundaries.
Interesting.
What else? Then there's the element of dirtiness and materiality. Taking out those stinky bins was described explicitly as a man's job. This associates certain types of dirty or unpleasant work with masculinity. In contrast, cleaning the house, often seen as women's work, involves a different kind of dirt, maybe perceived as a more controlled mess.
Okay, the type of dirt matters.
It seems to. This links to what some sociologists call a bodywork alignment. Basically, tasks become associated with perceived physical differences between men and women, like seeing heavy lifting as inherently male due to assumed strength, or certain detailed cleaning as female due to assumed dexterity or patience.
And did the men in the study use these ideas to justify their roles?
Oh, definitely. Men often legitimize their claims to these tasks by drawing on perceived physical strength or technical skill. Charlie, discussing lawn mowing, said something like, "The mower is too heavy and you find Helen is in the fence," implying she couldn't handle it. Tim pointed out that Gemma doesn't do DIY because she is too short.
Too short, seriously.
Yep. And Kevin, when talking to Emma about DIY, quipped, "You are a bit like a bull in a china shop, aren't you? Paint everywhere, gets a hammer, and oh dear."
Ouch. And how did Emma respond to that?
Emma's response was telling. She just said, "Not up to his standard," which perfectly captures the relational aspect of this gatekeeping. Women often end up sort of agreeing with, or at least accepting, men's assumed superior competence.
Right. They internalize that standard.
Exactly. And men reinforce this by setting very high standards for these tasks, insisting, for example, that the lawn has to be cut nicely, gotta have straight lines. This can subtly exclude partners and ensure men's continuing dominance. It's almost a way of saying, well, you could do it, but you wouldn't do it right. My way.
That's a powerful observation, how setting those high standards can be a subtle form of exclusion. So, okay, if men are actively claiming these tasks, sometimes using these justifications, what does that mean for the women in these relationships? How do they respond? What role do they play in this dynamic?
Well, the study found that women often play a perhaps surprisingly complicit role in maintaining this status quo. They sometimes even deny or minimize their own contributions to these man-typed tasks, even when they do actually help out. It's a fascinating form of relational doing gender.
So they downplay their own involvement.
Yeah. Take Angela, for instance. When discussing DIY, she automatically said, "That's you, I don't do any," speaking to her partner Ed, only to be immediately corrected by him. "Rubbish." And Angela then remembered, "No, I do the painting, don't I?" And then they reconsidered it as a shared task.
Wow. So she actually forgot her own contribution because it fell under the man's job category.
It seems that way. It shows how deeply ingrained these perceptions are.
It's like they're protecting the established gender roles, maybe unconsciously, even if it means erasing their own efforts.
Precisely. And sometimes women used what the researchers called a protective narrative. They downplayed their involvement or explained away the man's dominance, perhaps to avoid criticizing their partner or implying he wasn't fulfilling his expected masculine role. Lucy, for example, insisted DIY was shared, even though her partner Mark initially placed the card differently. And she explained his past absence from DIY by really emphasizing his masculine provider role and how busy he was with work. It's kind of a way of excusing the imbalance.
Making it fit the narrative.
Right. There were also feminine distinctions made within these man-typed tasks. So when women did help with DIY, it was often framed as feminine DIY things like painting or decorating.
Ah, the softer side of DIY.
Kind of. This made it easier to integrate their help into existing gender norms without fundamentally challenging the broader masculine association of DIY as a whole.
Okay. And what about just practicality? Were women maybe just happy to let men take these on, given everything else they have to do?
That's a crucial point the study raises. It suggests that women might be, and I quote, "happy not to participate in chores which men are willing to do, especially given their already heavy load of other, often really time-pressured housework."
So it's almost a pragmatic decision, like, okay, fine, you do that one, it's one less thing for me.
It could be seen that way. One less thing to manage or argue about. We hear this echo in Sandra's frustration. She's lamenting her own domestic workload while her partner is doing DIY outside, and she says, "God, I wish I was on a ladder painting outside."
Yeah, you can feel the weariness there.
You can. It's not just a passing thought. It suggests a recognition of the imbalance, but maybe also a resignation to it. Because the alternative fighting for that task, or adding it to her own plate, might feel even more burdensome.
So putting it all together, it's not just one person's actions, is it?
Not at all. What's truly fascinating here is how this gatekeeping isn't just an individual strategy, but it acts as a powerful social mechanism. It reproduces constructs of masculinity and femininity through the mutual interactions of partners. Both men and women do gender through these subtle and sometimes not so subtle interactions. They're collectively sustaining these gender divisions in the home.
And this connects to the bigger picture how?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the persistence of men's responsibility for these specific man-type tasks might actually be impeding change in other areas of domestic work. Those areas that are often more time-consuming or less enjoyable, frankly. When men are seen as indispensable for mowing the lawn or fixing things, it can subtly reinforce the idea that other tasks, the daily grind of cleaning, cooking, childcare logistics, naturally fall to women. It can effectively add to women's overall domestic workload, just like we heard in Sanders' example.
Right.
So these micro-level negotiations, these conversations about who starts the lawnmower, they have significant macro-level consequences for gender equality in the home, and you could argue beyond.
Okay, so to bring it all together for you listening, this deep dive has shown us how doing gender and this idea of male gatekeeping subtly but really powerfully shape how household labor gets divided, particularly for those tasks labeled man-typed. We've seen that these tasks can offer men certain benefits, enjoyment, maybe some leisure time, a way to maintain a masculine identity, often without conflicting with their paid work. And for women, well, there's often an implicit or sometimes explicit agreement to these divisions, maybe sometimes as a pragmatic trade-off, as you said, to avoid taking on even more tasks, even if it means feeling that frustration sometimes.
Exactly. And this raises, I think, an important question for all of us. If gender is truly something we do through our everyday interactions, how might you in your own household, perhaps, or in your relationships, how might you be subtly reinforcing or maybe even challenging these gendered norms, even in the smallest of tasks?
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What man's jobs or woman's jobs exist unquestioned in your own life, or maybe among people you know, and what would it actually take to undo that perception, to truly challenge those deeply ingrained assumptions about who does what and why? Something to mull over. We encourage you to reflect on your own household dynamics after listening. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.